Guys, look!
Do you like this? Do you like this? Well, no more.
You know, people are bashing the DCEU, but I think the Arrowverse has been in shambles more over the past couple of years. And recently, the CW has canceled a lot of the DC Arrowverse shows, like Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow, and it's rumored that at season's end for these shows, they're gonna get canceled, which is Flash, Superman and Lois, and Stargirl. The reason I don't talk about the Arrowverse that much is because I'm not too familiar with it. There was some of these shows where I sat down and tried to watch, you know, every week, but I just couldn't do it. Maybe just, you know, they started out well and then they just started going downhill, kind of like The Flash. Like after season 3, it just got worse and worse to a point where I just didn't care anymore. And some of these shows, sure, like Superman and Lois, Stargirl, and even Legends of Tomorrow, I've never seen. But there's a lot of people that say these shows were definitely starting to take a tumble in some way, whether they were doing it fast or slow. And it seems like the CW at this point in time is just done with its Arrowverse. All these shows were connected together. I think at some point all the heroes from those shows like came together and had their own big like multiverse or whatever thing going on. Yeah, I think the CW is just realized that some of these shows have gone on for way too long and have realized they don't need to have it carry on this long. I mean, it's basically turning into whatever the hell Sony and the MCU were doing together, where, you know, now that they got the multiverse, they're just doing this, this, and this, and there's no consistency to it. There's no... I mean, there's a plan, but the plan isn't as, like, it's not as thought out as what was originally planned from the beginning, which was the Endgame. And even at that, Marvel still couldn't end at Endgame. They had to continue a lot of other things. But at some point in time, and even right now, I'm just like, can the MCU end? Like, when is it going to end? How many phases are they going to do? How many shows for this current MCU are they going to do before they just kind of, you know, start over? Because even Kevin Feige, the Marvel guy, said, yeah, well, our shows, not even shows, movies, are going to get rebooted at some point in time with different actors and a different story. Because, you know, even though you have this big, gigantic universe, you can't keep the same thing going on. And like I said, now that Sony's involved and their universe is kind of like collided in with it, it's just become super confusing. And the DCEU, I mean, at least they have a plan to, you know, turn things around. It might not be the DCEU that we originally wanted, that kind of failed in the beginning, but at least they're acknowledging that it was a mistake and they have to kind of backpedal and do some other things, whereas, you know, they didn't get rid of Ben Affleck. He's supposed to return and he's supposed to stay for a while, and, you know, Jason Momoa, Gal Gadot, they still have other movies they're going to make as Aquaman and Wonder Woman, and, you know, I mean, yeah, there's the whole Ezra Miller thing going down, but, I mean, who knows where that'll go at this point. We'll pretty much have to wait till after the Flash movie to see what they do with him, and plus there's rumors that Henry Cavill could potentially be returning as Superman, making a cameo in an end credit scene for the Shazam sequel, but again, only time will tell there. It was either Shazam or Black Adam's post-credit scene. I can't necessarily remember. And a lot of people are also making fun of the DCEU because they're bringing in new faces to be the new so-called, like, you know how Marvel in the beginning, its big three was Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor. Those were the movies, the trilogies they focused on before they really got into any of the Avengers movies and anything past that. Well, to start out the DCEU, obviously you had to have the three biggest heroes, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, get involved before anything else, before you brought the other heroes in. Well, now it seems it's going in a different direction, as it still seems that Wonder Woman will be kind of one of the faces, but bringing in others like Batgirl and all this other things. And some might even say that Harley Quinn could be a face of the DCEU, because she still seems to be a popular character, and 2 of the 3 movies that the character has appeared in have actually been received pretty well, so, you know, I guess you can put her in that category as well. But I think what the DCEU is doing is, yeah, they're making their own universe, but they're not gonna try to do the Marvel thing anymore, where everything's connected, everything has to follow. They're gonna set the stories they want to set in place, but yet let the directors have creative control, because we've seen what happens when you give a director creative control. You get things like the Batman, the Suicide Squad, two movies that I think kind of saved DC in a way where people started looking at it and go, when DC gives their directors complete full control, it turns out pretty well, whereas when they step in and take control themselves, things tend to go haywire. I mean, look at how they butchered Justice League, and they still won't admit that they fully made that mistake after the HBO Max Snyder Cut was released, but they're at least acknowledging the fact that, oh, we may have made some mistakes, let's kind of hire new people in here to fix this and maybe even start over with some new stuff. And I think with the Arrowverse, that's what they're doing, as it seems like this new Gotham Knights show, which I definitely will be tuning into. I want to see how that works. It's supposed to be a world without Batman. He's dead, so I think it was like Nightwing, Robin, I think Batgirl shows up. They're the new heroes in Gotham, and they gotta save and keep Gotham protected. And this is said to not be part of the Arrowverse. It's sent to be its own thing and not really attach itself to any universe in general. And you know what? I think I'm fine with that. It's like when you look at the Joker movie. It didn't attach itself to any universe. You just knew, yeah, it's a Batman story. It's a villain origin story. But it didn't need to be attached to the stories of the DCEU, because that's not what this was. This was just, it's like someone made like this comic book and it was meant to be a one-off, and that was it. It wasn't attached to anything else. Even though they're saying the Joker could get a sequel, I still feel like if you leave it as a standalone one-off film, it did its job for what it was. It was like Logan, too, if you're talking Marvel's version of it. Logan, even though it's supposed to be the third movie in the Wolverine trilogy, it doesn't necessarily follow everything from the other movies that came before it. It's just kind of its own thing with its own ending that is really supposed to not set up anything else past that. And with the CW, I think that's just what they want to go with, because a lot of these shows that just have its own thing going, they don't try to intermingle it with anything, they actually do a really good job. And sure, they might not last as long as these shows have, but they become more interesting, they become more entertaining because they're their own thing and they're not trying to force something into it. I mean, okay, maybe people say, well, didn't you like Peacemaker? That's part of the DCEU. And yes, I did like Peacemaker Season 1, and they even, to me, kind of felt like a forced Justice League cameo in there.
Fuck you, Barry.
But that was entertaining in itself because it continued the story from the Suicide Squad, which left you on a cliffhanger at the end credit scene when we found out that Peacemaker wasn't dead. So the story kind of had to continue. But there's just been other movies that I've seen and watched in this universe or in other universes where it just ends and then all of a sudden they're trying to connect everything together, and it's like, but you didn't set it up that way. Like, it becomes so confusing. And the Arrowverse too, I think a lot of these shows have just kind of, continued on for way longer, especially The Flash, that at this point the ideas just kind of, they're not there anymore, and it just brings the show down. And I think starting fresh with other new shows can really do it. I mean, Marvel's had success with this, and you got unknown characters coming in, like, say, for example, Moon Knight. That series was huge, and I bet you not a lot of people knew about the character and really what went on with it before the show came out. I know I didn't, but I enjoyed it a ton, and it's like the Peacemaker series. Aside from the movie that we just saw him in, no one really knew much about him, and we learned a lot more about him, and it became enjoyable, and in the end, everybody started hating him less because people, hated him for killing Rick Flag, but now we're like, okay, we kind of understand where he's coming from, and all that kind of stuff, and he becomes more likable. You want him and his crew to be victorious in the end. The Arrowverse, to me, started out fine, but then a lot of these shows, it was just like when they started to bounce off each other way too much, and then they all started to kind of, force themselves to keep going, it just became unwatchable and unenjoyable, and I don't think I've tuned in a couple of years, really. Like, I've never watched Superman and Lois or Stargirl, even though I think Stargirl's made more for, like at least with Superman and Lois and The Flash and other stuff, they're willing to get into more adult themes, adult topics, whereas Stargirl, I feel like it's like if Nickelodeon or Disney Channel made like a superhero type show, which I think Nickelodeon already did, but that was past my time of watching Nickelodeon shows. I was older at that point in time, so I just didn't really tune into that. That's basically all I really have to say. I'd really be interested to see what you have to say about this in the comments below. What were some of your favorite Arrowverse shows? Because I also think that the Green Arrow show, the one that I think technically started it all, has been canceled as well. But what were your favorite shows from this universe? Which ones are you sad to see go? Which ones are you don't really even care about? Like, what are the Arrowverse shows where you're like, yeah, you know what, we can do without that one? And what are your expectations for this Gotham Knights series? It seems interesting, and I'm hoping that it does well, and with the recent trend of DC movies and shows actually doing, fairly well, I do have high hopes that this will be at least good enough for a second season. After that, though, it'll be like, will it be able to keep up momentum if it gets any? And if not, then what happens after the first season? But it seems like they got a plan. They're going to put it in order, and they're not going to have everything intermingle with each other, which I think could lead to a better, more enjoyable project in the end. So, yeah. That's it for me. Stay safe out there, wear your mask, get vaccinated, and I will catch you all in the next one. Here are some non-DC Arrowverse shows that will keep you occupied while the Arrowverse tries to figure its thing out. Doom Patrol, Harley Quinn the Animated Series, Pennyworth, Peacemaker, and Titans. Fuck Batman. You're welcome.